It's amazing how we can build up our picture of the world of the New Testament and the world of the earliest Christians. In everyone's pocket, watching this film, are coins. And with me today is Professor Roland Deines, who has four ancient coins, and is going to show how, by just looking at a coin, we can help reconstruct the ancient world and gain an insight into the minds of the early Christians. Roland, you're very welcome.
Thank you very much, Tom.
What coin are you going to start with?
I want to start with one coin which I normally use as introduction for my module on the Jewish context of early Christianity, which I teach regularly here in Nottingham. And on this coin you can clearly read on the obverse the abbreviation Brit.
B-R-I-T-T.
B-R-I-T. And then I always ask my students, what do you think does this mean? Does this have anything to do with Britain? And of course, when I tell them this is a coin from the 1st century, they say no. And then I say, actually it's yes, because this Brit is an abbreviation for Britannicus, and reverse back to the conquest, so-called conquest of Britain, done by the Emperor Claudius in the year 43 of the Common Era. And he named then one of his sons Britannicus, and the coin is obviously taken, this inscription, from this son of Claudius, the Roman emperor. And for me, this is a kind of eye-opener to the students, that when they go here in England to any museum which displays Roman artifacts from the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th century, they are dealing with exactly the same material culture than they find when they study the New Testament and study the biblical period or the early Jewish history of this time, because Britain was part of the Roman Empire, as was Syria and Judea and Samaria and Galilee, the time of the home places of Jesus. And so you can learn from this one coin, you get a feeling that this all belonged together. So it was an empire in a way larger than the European community today, and with similar problems, and the coins tell you a lot about these problems. So for example, this coin, on the other side you see two shields and two spears, the symbol for crushing locals, crushing rebellions, a fate which the Jews have to expect at some point. And this coin is actually minted in the name of Nero, not of Claudius. So Nero is related to Claudius. And the Nero, when he came to power, the first thing he did in the year when this coin was minted was to kill, to murder this Britannicus, the son of Claudius, to make sure that he will be the heir of the throne.
And of course, once we're dealing with a coin, we're dealing with trade. And so we have to realize that the Roman Empire is a trading network, and there are transportation routes and there are connections. And we know that, for instance, people like Paul are able to get around because they're able to pick up ships, trading ships. And indeed, the earliest texts of the New Testament diffuse on the trade routes.
And actually the Roman Empire is not just about trading, it's sending people around. So we have people from Syria garrisoned here in Britain, British soldiers garrisoned in Gaul and Germany. And so this was a huge melting pot of cultures, traditions, and of course religions. So religions moved from the east to the west more than from the west to the east. So that's a very interesting facet of a really multicultural and multi-religious society with open borders.
Before you leave that coin, what's the name of that coin and what's its value?
So this coin is minted by a procurator, so one of the successors of Pontius Pilate in Palestine, as the smallest denomination, so the smallest coin that was available at this time in Palestine. So you could, with 4 of these coins, according to a saying of Jesus, do you not buy 2 sparrows with 1 ass? So 4 of these coins would make 1 ass. And that means you could buy 2 sparrows with 4 of these coins. So I have no idea what a sparrow would cost today, but it's a fair amount of money. It's not just a cent or a p, but it's rather around £1 or so.
Okay, let's move on to our next coin.
So the next coin I want to show is a silver coin, which was minted in Jerusalem in the 40s. And
so this was actually minted in the city of Jerusalem within a decade.
Yeah, this coin as well. So this Festus, the Roman procurator who minted this coin, was a procurator of Judea. He was the one who arrested Paul and kept in prison in Caesarea.
So the first coin was minted under Festus, the man who arrested Paul.
Yep.
And now this silver coin was minted in Jerusalem.
In Jerusalem, in the Temple of Jerusalem, because this is a famous half shekel. That means the coin which you have to pay your temple tax. Every Jewish male had to pay once a year such a coin to the temple in Jerusalem to contribute to the sacrifices which were going on there, to the festivals, to the building and maintenance of the temple in Jerusalem.
So when we find in the Gospels the reference to the half shekel tax, it's one of those that would be used to...
It's this kind of coin which is minted in Jerusalem according to a type from the mint in Tyre, which is nowadays Lebanon, and that's quite an interesting thing because on the mint is a figure, and this figure represents Melkart or Heracles, the city god of Tyre, and that means actually the only coin that was allowed to pay your temple tax in Jerusalem represents a foreign deity.
So there's an image of a foreign deity being used in paying the temple tax.
And the point is that you have to pay with this coin, and this coin was not widely distributed. So people came with their normal money to the temple in Jerusalem to pay their temple tax, and then they had to go to the money changers to change their own money into this kind of temple tax. And of course the money changers, when they change money, they always add their own obolus to it. Mm-hmm. So you had to pay a little bit more, and this is the scenery for the story where Jesus drives out the money changer from the temple.
And the phrase we use in the English translation is of overturns their tables.
Yeah.
But of course the word for table is trapeza, which is also the modern word for bank.
For bank, until today in Greece. So that's this one coin.
So okay, our third coin.
The third coin is this one. Again, a procurator coin, very small, looks totally unimpressive. But again, when I show this coin to my students, it's a very helpful one. On the one side is written Tiberius, so it was minted under the reign of Tiberius, which was the emperor in the time of Jesus, who reigned from 14 to 37. And under his reign, Jesus was crucified in Jerusalem, and it was actually under the Roman procurator Pontius Pilate. And this coin was minted by Pontius Pilate in the year 29 to 30. So the minting year started in August, so somewhere between August 29 and August 30, and Jesus was crucified around April in the year 30. So this coin was minted at this time in Jerusalem, and I use this kind of coins mainly for the students to to make clear that the stories of the New Testament, even if they sometimes sound like fairy tales, even if they have sometimes a kind of element which you think this is not part of this world, when you then realize the names, the places, the coins, the kind of details within the text you can actually take into your hand. Whereas if you try to excavate Lord of the Rings, there's no way to find Middle Earth or any place name mentioned there, despite the wonderful maps Tolkien has drawn. But the New Testament you can actually excavate. And to touch something from the first century is in our virtual age, where you can see images of these coins in the thousands, of course, on the web. But to actually touch them and get a feeling, okay, that's real.
Yeah.
That adds something
that
to
coin
it.
could have been in the purse of someone who watched the crucifixion.
Yeah, actually, that is a possibility. Of course, it's no way to prove something like this, and this is not necessary.
But it brings it into the realm of the possible. And what is the last coin?
Yeah, what is the last coin? That's now a good question. I think I take the silver dinar, which is the kind of coin which is most often mentioned in the New Testament. So in the parable of the laborer in the vineyard, when the owner of the vineyard agrees to pay them, he agrees to pay them 1 dinar for the day, which is at this time quite a generous pay.
Sometimes we don't use dinar, we use denarius. We use the full Latin form.
Okay. So that's a denarius, and this is normally, on the one side you have the portrait of the Roman emperor. The one I have is from Vespasian, so slightly later than Jesus and the apostles, but of course for Jewish history a very decisive figure, because Vespasian is the one who fought against the Jews when they rebelled against the Romans, crushed them, and he and then his son Titus are responsible for the destruction of the temple in the year 70. And on the reverse of this temple, it's actually one of these Judea Capta coins. So you see the Roman goddess of victory, and to her feet, a woman representing the Judea and the Jewish people, lamenting and weeping. So the sign is clear. This rebellion was crushed by the Romans. And this coin like this is also used in this saying when Jesus is asked, should we pay tribute or taxes to the emperor? And then he said to the questioner, show me one of these coins, and he actually showed him denarius of this type. Of course, not of Vespasian, so it would be one of either Augustus or Tiberius. And normally the name is written on it. So the name is written on it, so the coin belongs to the emperor. So give the emperor what's the emperor, and give God what's God's. So this is using this coin to demonstrate this. And the kind of comical edge to it is that you are not allowed to bring these coins into the temple, but this discussion between Jesus and the one who asked him took place in the temple. So when they grabbed out of their pocket this type of coin, they in a way demonstrated, oh, we don't take this too serious, that we should not bring these foreign coins into the temple.
Thank you. There's just one other reference to coins that I think we should mention. That is, of course, the reference to coins in the Didache, where there's the saying, don't let it get sweaty in your hand. In other words, you also have to think about giving to the poor. Roland, thank you for bringing your wonderful collection and for sharing with us how little bits of metal, all nearly 2,000 years old, can bring us somehow closer to the reality of the early Christians. Thank you.
Thank you.